Hello, SRA. Welcome to another weekly track guide, where this week we'll be going over Zandvoort, situated in the west coast of the Netherlands. It's 14 fast-flowing corners full of camber, full of grip, but limited room for error if you're taking this track at full beans. So, we're going to show you the best braking points and the ideal racing lines, and a few nuances about the track to help you maximize your car's potential so you can take this track at full beans. Without further ado, we will rewind the video, or rewind the lap, I should say, and get the camera situated. And toggle the HUD. And get after it. So, on the run down to turn 1 down the pit straight, we are looking for our first braking marker on the left, which will be the 100-meter board. You can brake a little bit after this if the brake bias and car allows, but generally speaking, I would not brake any further than the red and white painted curbing or painted lines going across the track here. Now we're braking hard, dropping it down to second, and aiming to hit somewhat of a first apex, which is the kink of this grass here. We want to extend the trail braking zone all the way to the middle of the corner. So we're running out a little bit further wide, getting off the brakes about mid-corner, and then almost as soon as we're off of the brakes, we're getting onto the gas. Trusting the camber of the turn here, and that's the general theme for Zandvoort, is there's a lot of camber on a lot of these turns, so you can get on the power nice and early and trust that the camber will keep your rear end in check. Now, getting back on the power early and trying to hit a first apex somewhere around here. Now, just a disclaimer, I could have kept the lines on this lap a lot tighter, so I apologize for that, but hey, at least you can see the curb instead of my car parked on top of it. So, hitting that second apex for this first turn here, swinging it out wide to the left, ideally getting on the curbing here. You can use all the brick on the left. There's no loss of grip here. Just be mindful that it does end and there's some sand and grass here to meet you if you do keep the car out left for too long. There's sand and gravel and grass everywhere around this track. Just don't dip a wheel in it or you'll scrub quite a bit of speed. Now, keeping the car on the left going into the next turn, our brake marker is going to be on the left. We're looking for the start of this black motorsport sign, or maybe a little bit after. You can get on this curb on the left if you feel like you're comfortable doing so. It's maximizing the width of the track, so more power to you if you do. Now, braking and keeping the gear in third, and keeping our eyes on the curb on the right, because we want to get as close as we can to this curb without actually touching it. It's angled fairly aggressively, so if you do touch it, it will likely bounce you back to the left and onto the grass on the left, and put you at risk of hitting the wall. So again, get as close as you can to this curb without actually touching it. Swinging it out to the left, keeping it on the left. No need to worry about compromising the turn coming up because it is a long turn. You'll have time to get the car situated. Plus, you just want to generally keep your lines very tight here around Zandvoort. So, going into the next turn, we're looking for the end of the white Assetto Corsa Competizione banner on the right here for our braking point, and we're braking, dropping it to second and then first, aiming to hit a first apex closer to the start of the red and white curb here, and then swinging it out slightly wide to the right, and almost ideally trail braking in here, if not coasting, and then getting on the power nice and early and aiming to hit a second apex at the end of the red and white curb here. Now, once we swing it out wide, I would stick to the red and white curbing. Don't go any further than that because the angle of the paved section is facing to the right, so it's going to be hard to pull your car back to the left, and you're going to scrub a bit of time doing so. So keep it on the red and white stuff here. For this next section, we're just straight lining it, avoiding taking curbs. There's really no need to do it. You're not going to save any time by doing so, and if you do take curbs, you're just going to risk unsettling the car. So, going into the downhill right-hander, very high speed, it's important to control the pitch of your car here. In other words, controlling the forward and rear weight transfer of the car. So what we want to do is look for our brake marker on the left here. It's going to be the orange painted section of the barrier here. And we want to brake. You can brake full, but I think 85% is sufficient here. And we're braking with minimal steering input. Rewind here. Braking with minimal steering input. And really, we don't want to put any serious steering input in. You can see I'm actually still straight here on the steering wheel. We don't want to put anything serious in under heavy braking because we're going to be going downhill. All the weight's already in the front, so heavy braking just compounds that effect. And with all the weight in the front, we have nothing over the rear, and we lose grip there and tend to do a sweet drift here through this turn, which obviously is not ideal for lap time. So bleed off the brakes when you really start to turn in aggressively. Keep a constant steering angle. You want to hug the inside pretty much all the way through the turn. And as soon as you get to the red and white curbing, the start of it here on the right, you can get back on the power and let the car drift out to the left. Now, I'd keep it on the red and white stuff here as well, because while you can get on the paved section and not really lose any time, there is an abrupt ending to this curb, and it ends in sand, and it will jostle the car around a little bit. I don't know if it's enough to make you lose control, but it will jostle the car a little bit and make you lose lap time. So keeping it on the left and maximizing the width of the road. You want to follow the road here, follow the kink in the road, as I did there. And as soon as you straighten the wheel coming out of that kink, you're on the brakes, dropping it to third, and trailing in ideally, getting the car pointed in the right direction. The earlier you get the car rotated here, the earlier you can get on throttle and just power through the corner. So you can get on the throttle if you have the car rotated almost right here, I would say. I did it a little late here because, again, lines weren't ideal on this lap. And you can take most of this curbing. I would not go as far as the second tier of curbing here, this raised portion further inside. I don't think any car can take that reliably without causing a serious discomfort in your car. So running out wide, using the full width of the track, almost to the red and white curb here on the left, but maybe not on top of it because it does end in grass. So for the race, just some important info. If you do end up on this grass, let off the throttle, slowly brake, and try to keep two wheels on the tarmac for as long as you can, just because of the way the track is turning away from you, and the car, while it's on the grass, is going to want to go straight. It's extremely difficult to bring the car back on track here. So be very mindful of that. This turn there's no great braking marker. I would just use the start of the tire marks here in the center of the road. Keep the white sign in your peripherals. Be mindful of it. If you've gotten too close to it, it's already too late. You've broke too late, and you're going to blow the corner. So I get on the brakes as soon as the tire marks start. Keep it wide. We're going for a late apex here. You drop it down to second, not first, because we don't want to hinder ourselves with engine braking. And we're going for a late apex, which is roughly at the end of the red and white curb here. Don't actually get on this curb because it's, for whatever reason, more serrated than other curbs, and it's more aggressively serrated. So it'll jostle the car a little bit, and you just don't want to take it. So late apex here, and we're back on the power early. Running it out to the left. Again, not concerned about compromising the entry to the next corner because it is a longer corner. For our braking marker, we are looking for either the ambulance or the orange painted section of the barrier on the right there. I'm still going backwards, so going forwards. Again, I use the ambulance braking, shifting it down to second, try to keep it tighter than this. Ideally, pretty much on the red and white curb, because it can give your car a little bit more rotation. And early power, light throttle, just to keep the car rotating, and power out to the right here. I wouldn't use, oh, my apologies. Skipping all over the place here. I guess we can watch that in in full speed as we get to the next exit. And this is about where we were. This is a pretty aggressively serrated curb, so it can bump the car around a little bit. I wouldn't take it. You usually don't have to. You usually don't run out that wide. Onto this next straight. Keeping the car on the left, and our brake marker is going to also be on the left. We are looking for the 100-meter board, as you can see here. And we're braking hard, dropping it down to first. And ideally, letting off the brakes completely before we get to this apex. You don't want to trail brake over this apex because you want to keep weight a little bit more evenly distributed. You don't want all the weight in the front as you're going over this bump. It is fairly aggressive, and you only want to take the inside of it. The outside of it. Don't go any further in and touch the second tier of curbing here. I don't think, again, any car can take that second tier. So no brakes as you go over that. Give it a little bit of flutter of throttle just to keep the speed up a little bit, and just hang it on the inside here for this 180-degree turn. I think it's 180 degrees. Again, early power, relying on the camber of the road. About mid-corner, we're back on the power. The camber of the road will keep the rear in check. Run it out to the right. Don't go over the red and white curbing because it's, again, angled pretty aggressively, and if you go over it, it's going to be hard to bring the car back over the other side. So maybe mount it, but don't go any further than it. And power down to the penultimate corner. Looking for the orange painted section of the barrier on the right for our brake marker. We're going to shift down to second and try to use as much of this red and white and paved section on the right as we can. You don't lose any grip there. It does help the car get rotated. And as soon as you start to touch it here, actually, you can get back on the power. And be mindful that there is only sand and limited curbing here on the left. So if you have to lift a little bit, because you will likely lose less time by lifting than you will touching the sand. So get on the paved stuff. Be careful. Try to get off of it as soon as possible because, again, it ends abruptly and you don't want to get on the grass. As soon as you get off of it, start turning in for the last corner. Keep a constant steering lock and aim to hit the beginning of the red and white curb here on the right. Constant steering lock, and that red and white curb, the beginning of it at least, you can treat as your apex. And so as soon as you hit that, you start to let the wheel out a little bit and run wide out here to the left, being mindful that the curb is fairly narrow here, but tends to extend out in this section. And then, yeah, you just power down, and that's a wrap on the lap. That lap was a 134.7, if I'm not mistaken. So now we will go back and show that in full speed.